As someone who's played video games for my entire life, I have always really enjoyed the process of buying and collecting video games. And although that has taken different forms in the way I have bought and collected games over the years, it's just something that's always really stuck with me. And since last year, when myself and my wife bought our first big adult house with a lot more space, I've really leaned into that collecting side of things, and I've just been really enjoying it. And I just wanted to talk about it today, so here we are. This is my video game collection. So essentially, before what you see around us, I was storing my video game collection on a small set of shelves in my lounge, which was fine. It worked for what it was. However, there wasn't a load of space, and I was pretty much already at full capacity, with some things not being on display, some things being put on a different set of shelves, and some things actually being kept in a box, which was just not ideal and not what I wanted. So when we moved in, and when we moved to this house, and once we kind of got a bit of money back together, because just spoiler alert, moving house is very expensive. Once that had been completed, I started thinking about what I wanted to do for my next method of displaying my video games. And originally I was actually looking at buying a slightly bigger shelving unit, one that was maybe, I think, double the size of what I had before, thinking about the expandability and everything like that, and that actually took the form of one of these things, this bit here, one of those to go in our lounge. The existing shelves I had for video games were very thin, very narrow, and you kind of almost didn't notice them in the room. It was quite a nice solution, to be honest. I just wish it was bigger, because it didn't really stick out, it wasn't very deep. It just existed. It was great. However, this shelf here was, I think, around double the depth of those shelves. So if I put it where the existing shelves were, which is next to the sofa, it would have just made everything feel a little bit more cramped, and I didn't want that. So then the idea came to me of not storing my video games in the lounge anymore, which felt sacrilegious because that's something that I have always done. Since having my own place, we rented a few properties before we finally bought one. They were smaller, we didn't have much office space or anything, so my video games just always went in the lounge because that's where the consoles were and that's where there was space for them. And I was like, wait a minute, we've got this really nice room for an office. I have an office now that's actually a really good size, so I should put my video games in there. And that just led me down a rabbit hole of building what I have behind me today, and it's something that I'm so proud of. These shelves are the IKEA Billy shelves. You can go ahead and get those on the IKEA website. They're really good. This isn't a sponsor, by the way, they're just good shelves. And what's really great is that on the IKEA website there's a configurator, and you can kind of map out exactly how you want it to look. So I kind of built this digitally on their configurator, and then it tells you exactly what you've put in the configurator and allows you to order it all within the website. It's really helpful. And so I did that, ordered it, they arrived, I built them, and here we are. I ordered 3 different shelves, so a large size Billy, or sort of like a regular size I guess, the smaller one which is right here, and then another regular size one with the plain glass doors that are completely see-through top to bottom. There's a few different doors, you can get different colours and everything. I went for the white because I think it looks brightest within the room. You can get like an oak styled unit, however I think that almost looks too busy with the video games on top of it. I don't want people to be looking at the shelves really, I want them to be looking at the games. I really like how they look in this room, but also what's really nice about the IKEA Billy is it's a whole range, it's expandable. I could buy more shelves if I wanted to, and I could expand the collection further. So if you're considering shelves for your video games or a media collection or anything, I would highly recommend looking at the IKEA Billy shelves. My only complaint with them so far is the shelves themselves are quite deep. So actually what I've done is all my games, I've brought them slightly forward just so that they're not right at the back, because they are quite deep, as I say. So yeah, IKEA Billy shelves came in and saved the day. They were exactly what I was looking for. I know you can get more expensive options, just really didn't have the money for that. And actually, to be honest, like, when I look at them now, I'm just so happy with them. And what's really cool is it makes a great place for me to record these videos. So I think we should talk about the video games. Starting at the very top of the shelf. So yeah, there's the 3 units, 1, 2, 3. We'll go this unit first, and we're going to go right at the top. We have the Xbox shelf. You can't really see it in the frame right now, but don't worry, I'll include the shiny shots. So with Xbox, I have reserved only one shelf for Xbox games, and that's because I don't really plan on collecting Xbox games in a pretty intensive way. My plan is to maybe rebuy some games that I had during the Xbox 360 era, Call of Duty's, your Halos, and just essentially things that I am nostalgic for. That's my plan with the Xbox. I don't really plan on going any further than that. There were a ton of games for the 360. Xbox was the obvious one to just like put the brakes on a little bit. While I love the 360 and that was my main console during that time, I've always been more attached to PlayStation or Nintendo. Xbox has only really been my main console that one time. And I love the 360, and that's why I'm going to rebuy a bunch of 360 games that I don't have anymore. But yeah, it's not a priority for me. I've also pretty much given up on buying games for the Series X. I just don't really feel the need to anymore. I can either get it on PC or I can get it on the PlayStation if I want to have that physical copy. Maybe that'll change in the future, maybe it won't. Maybe I'll have made a huge mistake. So next up we have I'm going to skip down to the PlayStation shelves now before we get into this. So you may be thinking, you're talking about how you're so nostalgic for PlayStation. You had a PS1, a PS2, a PS4, you did have a PS3 for a little while, and you now got a PS5. Why is the collection looking so small? Now that comes down to one main thing. There's also the whole fact of digital games. I did get quite a few digital games during the PS4 era. The main thing is, and I'm not sure if this is an experience everyone else has had, but it's just an experience that I had. When I was younger, I wanted to play a bunch of different games, so I tended to trade in or sell my games on a fairly regular basis in order to get the new one. Because if I didn't, then there'd be no way of me actually playing those new games that I wanted to check out and try. I got very used to taking my PS2 games to, I think at the time it was Game or Game Station in the UK. Anyone remember those? Yeah, I mean, Game still exists in a sort of like a hollow shell of its former self. But yeah, that's a topic for another video maybe. It's left my collection feeling a bit small on Sony compared to what it used to be, and that's kind of upsetting for me. I do have that kind of hindsight and regrets now for trading in those games, but equally I understand if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have been able to play some of the other amazing video games that I have played in my life. So back then, that was just how it was. I would tend to sell games that I didn't really like or didn't really have a massive connection towards. So, it's something that I'm looking to hopefully rebuild in the future, especially with Sony. It did happen a bit with Nintendo as well, but especially with Sony, I really want to rebuild my PS1 and my PS2 collections back to something a bit more exciting. I really, really loved those eras. They're the eras I grew up on. They're the eras that got me into video games. I'm going to be expanding the PlayStation collection, especially PS1 and PS2, but not forgetting PS4 and PS5 as well. I do enjoy PC gaming. We have a PC connected up to our TV downstairs that's, going to be able to perform way beyond anything that the current gen consoles are going to be able to achieve. However, sometimes, you just really want a physical copy of a game, especially if it's a game you really, really love. And so PS5 will still allow me to do that because I do have a PS5 disc edition, especially when, when we're looking towards the end of this generation, which feels insane to say. We are in the back half of the PS5, which is ridiculous. I have other thoughts on that I talked about in my State of Play reaction, which you can check out at the cards. The prices of those games will tend to come down, as is the case with most consoles. Not Nintendo, but most consoles. But PS2 and PS1 are really, really my priority. I've also just really grown an affinity to the PS Vita. I have like, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4 physical games. I did used to have a couple more. There's a couple that I really, really regret selling. But this console is a weird and wonderful little thing, so I've started collecting them. They're starting to get a bit pricey, so I'm not sure what I'll be able to get versus what I won't be able to get. This is one I found in America, of all places. I was in New York, and I went to this brilliant video game store in New York. I think it's just called Video Games NYC, and they had a sealed copy of Proteus for the Vita, which I was just like, hell yeah. And it was like $30 as well. I feel like that was a pretty good steal. Proteus is a really trippy game, would 100% recommend checking it out. It's on Steam and stuff, you could probably get it on sale. Back in the day, in previous YouTube channels that I've worked on, I did a video on this with a good friend of mine, and it was just a really fun and trippy and weird video that we made together. And so I have a lot of nostalgia for this game. I'm just so happy that I have a sealed copy of it on PS Vita. You also may notice on the Sony shelves, I have on the bottom shelf a row of steelbooks. Now, this idea to me was to make the shelves look full even when they're not. That shelf is essentially reserved for future Sony games. It allows the PlayStation collection to bleed down onto the next set of shelves, and that space is already reserved for them. When you come into the room and look at them, they look full, but actually there's plenty of space for expansion in the future. It kind of achieves best of both worlds, and at that point, you know, I'll just then move the steelbooks back into their alphabetical place in the collection. And I've done that with Nintendo as well. You may also notice the bottom shelf has no games in it right now. Not sure what this shelf is going to be. I think it might just be further expandability for either the Nintendo or the PlayStation collection, depending on how we expand things in the future. The reason I haven't put anything there for now is because we have 2 cats. They love to play with things, especially the one that's like 7 months old. She is a nightmare, so I'm just keeping low-hanging fruit out of the way, honestly. But with that out of the way, let's get on to the meat and potatoes with the Nintendo shelves. We have 4 whole shelves of Nintendo goodness. So when I was talking about tradings and selling, that did also impact my Nintendo collection. I'm thinking about the DS and the Wii U specifically with that. Not as much as it's impacted my Sony collection. As you can see, I still do have a pretty good collection of 3DS and Wii U games. But I think I reached a point in time where I was kind of like, I'm too cool for video games, and that was sort of like a very short period of my life. I think it was between the DS and the 3DS XL coming out. I'm not 100% sure. There was a time where I didn't really care about handheld gaming, so I didn't really buy them, and I think I sold my DS and all that kind of stuff, and it just kind of I moved on from it for a time, and it does mean that I have a very, very limited Nintendo DS collection. But since the 3DS, I've been pretty much all in on handheld games. I also, with my 3DS, got into digital games, and that is going to be something that's going to plague this not so much, but definitely this as well, so we'll talk about that. Part of it was space. Like, I just didn't have the space to store physical games and display them, so I didn't feel encouraged to buy them. I just didn't want to. I used to also quite like digital games for the convenience, and there are some games that I still would to this day hands down buy digital. I'm thinking things like Animal Crossing and Mario Kart, just games that at any point you would just want to pick up and play. So even with Nintendo advertising the next Mario Kart game for Nintendo Switch 2, I'm probably going to digitally download that game, because it's not a game that I want to have to fumble to get the cartridge for. I just want to be able to boot it up and play the game. Especially since we've been seeing some stuff starting to get delisted from certain platforms, it's really re-emphasized to me how important physical games are. I'm not gonna lie, I really enjoy the thin game cases, the size, the form factor is great. I love the cartridges. It's just so nice. I really love collecting Switch games, especially. They're really space efficient, and I just really appreciate that. But yeah, so we're starting with the 3DS. It's really helped cement my love with Nintendo. I think I got into it at the right time when the 3DS XL came out, New Super Mario Bros. 2. There was already a great back catalogue of things for me to get into, like Mario 3D Land, Ocarina of Time 3D, and a whole bunch of other things. And that was the sort of start of my interest in collecting consoles as well. When the new 3DS XL came out, I almost got hold of the Majora's Mask one. It was just out of stock, and I'm really gutted. To my day, I think one of my biggest gaming regrets is not trying to find that console, because now it is worth so much, and I really want it for my collection. That's kind of put that idea in my head of, if there's a limited edition console or something that I'm interested in, if I can make it happen financially, I'm gonna try and go for it, because I regret not getting that console. It was a beautiful 3DS, and I just missed out on it, which was gutting. There's a whole bunch of games here that I've had since the console came out, and like these are, a bunch of my original games and stuff like that. When it comes to Nintendo handhelds, as you can see, I don't really have any Game Boy games anymore. I don't really have any Game Boy Advance games anymore. I have a couple here or there, but really nothing to write home about. And I'm not hugely interested in recollecting those games. If I see some at a good price, maybe I'll pick them up one day. But the real meat and potatoes for me in terms of Nintendo handheld is DS to a smaller extent, but 3DS to a really huge extent. I love that console, and there are amazing games on it. There are a whole bunch that I'm missing that I need to pick up, so I expect I'm going to continue to expand this collection, because it's such a great system. And in terms of the DS, I want to just try and, once again, similar to the Xbox, and just try and expand to some of the games I originally had in my collection that I've since sold or traded in or whatever. I had a Game Boy Color, I had a Game Boy Advance, but I'm not too fussed about those ones. Maybe in the future that will change, but for now, really, 3DS is something that I'm quite excited about. I think with Game Boy, because the packaging is cardboard, getting hold of a really nice high quality copy is really tough. You know, it can be tough to get a nice quality copy, and the price can rank up. So I just don't feel too much pull to doing that. But one thing I will show off is, I think my favorite Game Boy Color game is The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening Deluxe. I found it on eBay with this awesome repurposed DS case. This is not official in any way, but it has the game cartridge in it. It doesn't have a manual or anything, which is kind of disappointing, but maybe I can pick one up. But yeah, now we get onto Nintendo home consoles. We do have a couple of amiibos and this beautiful Majora's Mask steelbook up here. On this side, we have the Nintendo 64. I'm not really that fussed about collecting N64. There are a couple of key games that I think are really important, and when I see them for a good price, I'll pick them up. But I'm not really looking to build up some really big kind of N64 collection. I'm just quite happy picking out a few of the best hits when I find them in a good price and in good quality, because it's just so hard. I mean, I got Mario 64, and like, this thing is beaten up, and this was pricey. Next up, we have GameCube. I have a few GameCube games. Once again, with N64 and GameCube, I never had them as a child, but in terms of expanding the collection, I'm a bit more enthusiastic about collecting GameCube games, because first of all, they have plastic cases, so like the quality is easier to get at a decent price, but also I think there are just some fantastic games on GameCube. Not that there's not on N64, but there are fantastic games on GameCube. One highlight is I do have a copy of Twilight Princess on the GameCube that I've had for many, many years. Twilight Princess, apart from the Wii version, gets a bit of a tough time in terms of physical copies. It's always really expensive to buy. I also have Pikmin 1 and 2. Those are fantastic games. I slept on Pikmin for so long, and now I am just obsessed with it. So yeah, I have Pikmin 1 and 2. It's not a massive GameCube collection, but I want to expand this collection as we go. You know, there are things like Metroid, even Resident Evil 4, you know, a whole bunch of things that I want to pick up on this console. Wii was a bit of a shared console between my family and I, so I think once again it kind of suffered from the trade-ins and the selling and all this kind of stuff. But also we did have that kind of experience of the Wii starting to collect dust as well, because maybe I just wasn't into the right games at the right time, but it just didn't seem to click after a while. You know, the initial Wii Sports hype died off and it kind of didn't click. I still love things like Mario Galaxy, etc., but between those big tentpole releases, I wasn't playing it much, if at all, to be honest. Full time, I'll probably pick up some more games for the Wii as well, because there are some amazing games on there, and actually I do still have my Wii U plugged in, so I can actually play those games really, really easily. So yeah, I think I'll continue to expand that collection. I quite like the Wii now, and all the games come from it. I think in hindsight, now we got a few generations away from it, I can really appreciate it for what it was. And then we get this guy, the Wii U. The Wii U, the Wii U, the Wii U. I need to make a full video about the Wii U because I have a lot of thoughts about it. I really love the Wii U. It's the first video game console that I actively was like, I want to buy this on day one. I'm going to pre-order a special edition, the Zombie U one specifically. I'm going to, you know, save up all my money. I'm going to buy it. I'm so enthusiastic, I want to go and get it at midnight, all this kind of stuff. It's the first console I ever did that with. Wasn't great, was it? It really wasn't great. There's some really interesting and cool games on this console, and I think that's why I love it so much. Especially now that we have the Switch, these games really sing. Things like Mario 3D World, on its own, without something like Mario Odyssey to accompany it, it kind of sucks, because you're like, I want this big next-gen expansive 3D Mario experience. But then you have Mario Odyssey now, and so you can look at 3D World and be like, this is a cool alternative option. This is a cool extra to have alongside Mario Odyssey. We also got things like Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD, which I have a Twilight Princess HD as well, which is surprisingly expensive now to buy. Woolly World is the best Yoshi game aside from Yoshi's Island, right? It's got these classic games on it that are really, really good. I think the Wii U had a more systemic issue. It had a release schedule issue. It had marketing problems. It had branding issues. There are a whole bunch of problems with the Wii U, but some of the games were absolutely awesome. So I did sell a few of them, but not loads. So I have got a good collection of these, but I'm going to continue expanding it because there's a load more. One thing about this collection you may notice: I have 6 copies of Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival. I will not be taking any questions at this time. So yeah, the whole thing of these shelves is I want to continue expanding these collections. You know, GameCube and DS a bit more, but 3DS and Wii U, I really want to continue expanding these collections. I have such a close attachment to these platforms, so I just really want to grow my collections of those. But now we get onto the Nintendo Switch. This is my main video game collection. I have the most physical games that I have on any console on the Switch. And look, they take up such a small amount of space. It's lovely. I once again appreciate the design of the Switch boxes. In fact, like overall, the Switch by far is the most games I've ever bought for a video game platform. I have so many games digitally. I have all these physical games as well. I'm really happy with my Switch collection. I do wish some of the ones I had digitally were sat here on the shelf instead, but that's hindsight. I can't do a whole lot about that. You know, maybe I'll double dip on a few of them, but I've got such a big collection. The Switch collection is actually what prompted me to start my spreadsheet that I use to track all my video games. I want to say there's around 150 Switch games that I have overall between digital and physical, which is a crazy amount of games. No one should do that, and that's only like each game. Like some games that there's a few that I have twice. I love the Nintendo Switch. I've been trying as well to be on the lookout for games that I think are going to become rarer, or things that are going to be a bit more niche in the future, because I'd like to pick them up, because owning things like that to me is really cool. Even if it's not necessarily a game that I will like, I still want to pick it up and try it, and you know, give it a try, or even just have it for my collection, because you know, I love to support these franchises. I also just love to own pieces of gaming history. It's just something that I find quite exciting. The Switch collection, I'm so happy with. It's a great collection. I'm going to continue expanding this. In fact, I just picked up another game, which isn't on these shelves, Astral Chain, which once again is a game I'm really excited to try, because, you know, I was worried about the prices on that game going up, and it's something that I wanted to have for this shelf. So yeah, the Switch is potentially my favorite game console of all time. It's really enabled me as an adult to play as many games as I can with the time that I have. It's a platform that I love very deeply. I've loved the past, 8 years of playing my Switch. I own like 6 of them. It's just a fantastic console. It has like so many games on it that are all just like 10 out of 10, really good. And I do want to make a video specifically about the Switch as the generation comes to a close. I love Nintendo. Nintendo is my primary platform of choice. They weren't the company that I started with. I did have a Game Boy and stuff, but they weren't the company that I started with in terms of my obsession with gaming. They are the company that has kept my love for gaming going since maybe like 2012. I'm very grateful to Nintendo for that, and you know, I could never undersell the amount of impact that their games have had on my life. Let's move on to these shelves. This is just Rayman stuff, okay? Rayman is a very important franchise to me. It is the most important video game franchise to me. There are many reasons for that that I'm sure I can go into in a more in-depth video about my Rayman collection. But just, I want to say that it is continuing to expand. I'm continuing to grow my collection. They're actually releasing new Rayman things now, which is like, whoa. I have managed to pick a fairly underloved franchise to be my favorite franchise, which kind of sucks. But hey, you know, nobody's perfect. I haven't put in the bottom shelves yet, but I think I'm going to need to, just for more Rayman stuff. The highlight here, I think for me, has to be the game that started it all. This game started my love of gaming. On the PS1, Rayman 1, this is a sealed copy. I did not pay $5.99 for it, but this video game started everything for me in terms of loving video games, and so owning this sealed copy of it really means a whole bunch to me. Rayman is also where my other Game Boy games are. Those are the other Game Boy games I own. And that collection's going to continue growing as well. It has more, like, it has such an emotional connection to me that I probably need to put it in its own video to really sell the extent to which I love this franchise. Okay, and then we have the display cabinet, which is this one right here. If you've stuck through this entire video, by the way, you should pat yourself on the back and maybe consider subscribing. This is still the work in progress of this collection. This one is the work in progress. I'm not quite sure how I would like to display all of the stuff that I own, like the collector's editions and everything. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of stuff in here already. I think I have a few things dotted around the house that aren't in here as well, that I would like to put in here. We have a few special edition Nintendo games. We have a couple of limited edition Nintendo Switch consoles, and there's a shelf of Zelda stuff. so yeah, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to display everything, but the idea is it will be home to special edition consoles, memorabilia, just things that I find to be super interesting or super special to me in my collection. I'm not quite sure what I want to do with it, but I'll do something with it. That's kind of what I wanted to talk about this for is because I really want to like explore my collection and share it with you all and talk about it. You know, I'd love to make videos highlighting certain parts of my collection and certain games and franchises and consoles and everything. I'm going to experiment with what the format of that looks like, you know, potentially some review style things, maybe just talking about it, maybe like a podcast style conversation about it. I really don't know what that's going to look like. That's kind of what I want to do. I really want to talk about my video game collection, really deep dive into it. The mission statement of this channel ultimately is to talk about the games that I love and to talk about my passion for video games. That's the vision, and this video kind of talks about that in a weird, cool, kind of meta way. So yeah, be one of the first to subscribe. It's a cool place to hang. If you have any questions about my collection, or if you want to share things about your own collection, feel free to throw it in the comments. I want to hear about it. I want to see other people's collections. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a really good rest of your day, and yeah, we'll see you in the video. I hope that sounds good. Bye. God damn, I talked about video games for so long.